Quick question before we start. When was the last time you left a piece of cheese sitting out on the kitchen counter, walked away for a full week, and came back expecting it to still be good? Never, right? In the modern world, cheese left out of the fridge for more than a couple of hours already feels like a gamble. You've probably eaten cheese 100 times without ever wondering who invented the idea of turning milk into something solid enough to hold in your hand. Someone did. And it happened a lot longer ago than you'd guess. But somewhere in the hills of the Middle East, women have been making a cheese for 3,000 years that doesn't need a fridge at all. It doesn't need plastic wrap. It doesn't need a Best By date stamped on the side. You won't find it in a supermarket. You won't see it on a cooking show. No brand sells it. And as far as I can tell, no influencer has ever filmed a taste test video about it. And yet, left alone, made correctly, this cheese can sit for months, some accounts say up to a full year, and come out the other side, not spoiled, but better. It's made from exactly 3 ingredients, and by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what it is, why the Bible was quietly dropping hints about it the whole time, and how to make it yourself, tonight, in your own kitchen. The shocking truth. Here's a number that might change the way you look at cheese forever. Fermentation can break down up to 98% of the lactose in milk. 98%. Sit with that for a second. Do you know someone who insists they're lactose intolerant, but somehow shows up to every party and quietly finishes half the cheese board without a single regret? You're not imagining the hypocrisy. There's actual chemistry behind it. Properly fermented, aged cheese has almost none of the milk sugar responsible for the bloating, the cramping, the "why did I do this" to myself feeling that comes from a glass of milk. It's not willpower. It's fermentation. Think about how fast a regular carton of milk turns in your own fridge. Leave it out on the counter by accident for an afternoon, and by evening you're smelling the cap before you dare pour it into your coffee. Now compare that to a cheese that can sit in a clay jar, unrefrigerated, through months of desert heat, and taste better at the end than it did at the start. That's not a small difference. That's not a few extra days of shelf life. That's an entirely different relationship with food, one where time was never the enemy, because the process itself was designed to get better with age instead of worse. And here's the part that should actually surprise you. The people who figured this out weren't wearing lab coats. They didn't own a microscope. They were women in the hills of the ancient Middle East. And if anything, their bodies were even less tolerant of raw milk than most of ours are today. But they noticed something. When milk sat, when it thickened into curds, when it became this dense, salty, aged cheese, their stomachs stopped hurting, so they kept doing it mother to daughter, generation after generation, and solved a problem, without ever hearing the word lactose, that modern nutrition science is still writing papers about. Now, let's talk about the other reason this cheese deserves your attention. The no fridge thing. Because I don't think that fact gets nearly enough credit. This isn't it. Lasts a little longer than you'd expect. This is a cheese that, made correctly, with the right amount of salt and the right method, can sit in a clay jar through an entire Middle Eastern summer with 0 electricity and last for months, sometimes up to a year. Right now, somewhere, your refrigerator is quietly running 24 hours a day, drawing electricity just to keep a block of cheddar from turning into a science experiment. 3,000 years ago, a woman with a clay pot, a piece of cloth, and a handful of salt was outperforming that entire system without plugging anything in. So, what's the secret? Is there some lost ingredient, some ancient trick we've forgotten how to replicate? No, and this is honestly the most shocking part of the whole story. This cheese is made from exactly 3 things: milk, salt, and water. That's the entire ingredient list. No stabilizers, no preservatives with names that need a chemistry degree to pronounce. No factory involved anywhere in the process. Just milk from a goat, salt pulled from the earth, water from a well, and a woman who knew precisely what to do with all three. Before I tell you what this cheese is actually called, I want to take you somewhere first, because this isn't just a food story. This cheese shows up in the Bible in ways almost nobody talks about. And once you see it, you're not going to be able to unsee it. Biblical context. Let's go back. Not a few decades, not a few centuries, 3,000 years, to the hills of ancient Israel. Picture it. Dry, rocky hillsides covered in wild grass, small stone villages, narrow dirt roads, connecting one settlement to the next, and everywhere, goats. Goats climbing the hillsides, goats resting in the shade of fig trees, goats trailing behind a shepherd boy at sunrise. Goats weren't pets. Nobody was posting them online. They were survival. Milk to drink, hair for tents and clothing, skin for water bags, meat for the most desperate of times. But the single most valuable thing a goat produced wasn't meat. It was milk. Because milk, handled correctly, could become something meat never could. A food that traveled, that stored, that could carry a family through a drought or a war. That something was cheese. And here's where it gets interesting. Because the Bible doesn't talk about cheese the way it talks about bread or wine. It's quiet about it. Almost easy to miss entirely. But once you know where to look, it's everywhere. Here's the first mention, and it might be my favorite detail in this entire video. 1 Samuel, chapter 17, verse 18. This is before David ever picked up a sling. Before he stood across a battlefield from a 9-foot giant named Goliath. Before he was a king, a poet, or an ancestor of Jesus himself. David was just a shepherd boy running an errand for his father. His father, Jesse, sends him to the army's camp with instructions to check on his older brothers who are fighting in the war and to deliver something to their commanding officer, 10 portions of cheese. 10 cheeses. To the commander. Stop and actually picture that. In the middle of a war, with an entire army camped in a valley, terrified of a giant nobody had figured out how to beat. The gift sent to earn favor with the general isn't gold. It isn't a weapon. It's cheese. Try to imagine the future author of the Psalms hauling cheese wheels across a battlefield, like the most humble delivery boy in ancient history. If that doesn't tell you how valuable this food was, nothing will. Cheese wasn't a snack back then. And it definitely wasn't something you threw on a cracker at a party. It was currency. It was the kind of gift that earned you real respect from a powerful man. And the future king of Israel personally carried it across a battlefield. Here's fact number 2, and I promise you've walked right past this one without anyone ever pointing it out. In the middle of Jerusalem, the holiest city in the world, home to the temple, the city where Jesus taught, healed, and was eventually crucified, there was a valley, and this valley had a name. The Jewish historian Josephus, writing in the 1st century, called it the Tyropean Valley. In Greek, tyros means cheese. Puyo means to make. Put them together, and you get the Valley of the Cheesemakers, not the Valley of the Goldsmiths, not the Valley of the Priests. The Valley of the Cheesemakers, sitting right between the Temple Mount and the upper city, in the capital of the people of God. Think about what that actually means. Cheesemaking wasn't some obscure village craft happening on the fringes of society. It was significant enough to have its own district, in the most important city in the region. Every time Jesus crossed from one side of Jerusalem to the other, there's a real chance he walked straight through it. Past the smell of fresh curds, past women pressing cloth bundles by hand, past white rounds of cheese drying in the sun. That was the everyday soundtrack of his city, and almost nobody ever mentions it. Fact number 3 takes us even further back, to one of the most famous scenes in the entire Old Testament, Genesis chapter 18. Abraham, the father of nations, the man God chose to build an entire covenant around, is sitting outside his tent at the Oaks of Mamre when 3 strangers appear out of nowhere. Abraham doesn't know it yet, but these are no ordinary travelers. So what does he serve them? Genesis 18:8 tells us plainly, curds and milk. Curds, the earliest, freshest form of cheese, barely a few hours old, the father of the faith, welcoming what the text suggests were divine visitors, and cheese is on the table. And one more, because this one is quietly heartbreaking. Years later, David, now king, but a broken and hunted one, is fleeing for his life from his own son, Absalom, who has turned the kingdom against him. He's exhausted, stripped of everything, alone in the wilderness. And 2 Samuel 17:29 tells us that people came out to meet him with supplies to keep him alive. Among the food listed, cheese from the herd, the same food he once carried as a boy to win a commander's favor, now shows up decades later to save his life as a hunted, aging king. Bread opens his story on a battlefield. Cheese quietly closes the loop in the wilderness. If that's not poetic, I honestly don't know what is. By now, you should be fully convinced this cheese mattered to shepherds, to kings, to prophets, even to angels sitting at Abraham's table. But what actually was it? What did people do, physically, with their own 2 hands, to turn goat's milk into something that could survive a Middle Eastern summer with absolutely no refrigeration? That's where the science comes in, and it's honestly more impressive than most food documentaries give it credit for. The science. Here's the actual mechanism behind what's happening in that clay bowl, and it's more elegant than most things you'll find in a chemistry textbook. Raw goat's milk is naturally full of bacteria, not the scary kind, the helpful kind, the same broad family you'll find in yogurt, in kefir, in a jar of good sauerkraut. When that milk sits out in a warm room, those bacteria wake up and get to work. They start feeding on the lactose, the natural sugar in milk, and converting it into lactic acid. That's what causes the milk to thicken, to separate, to turn from a liquid into soft white curds, floating in a thin, pale liquid called whey. This is also exactly why fermented cheese sits so much easier in your stomach than a glass of milk does. Those bacteria are literally consuming the sugar that gives lactose-intolerant people trouble before it ever reaches your gut. By the time the cheese is finished, most of that lactose is already gone, converted into acid, which is also part of what gives aged cheese that sharp, tangy bite you recognize instantly. To speed this natural process along, or to help the curds set firmly, ancient cheesemakers kept a small toolkit of tricks passed down from mother to daughter, a splash of yesterday's leftover buttermilk to jump-start the bacteria, a dried thistle flower, which contains natural plant enzymes that curdle milk almost like a vegetarian stand-in for rennet. Or the classic method, a small piece of stomach lining from a young goat, which naturally contains rennet, an enzyme that causes milk proteins to bind together and pull away from the liquid whey. Nobody called this enzymatic activity or microbial fermentation back then. They called it wisdom. But it's the exact same chemistry food scientists get research grants to study today. Here's a fun way to think about it. Rennet is the exact same enzyme cheesemakers still use to make cheddar, mozzarella, and parmesan today. So in a strange way, that block of parmesan in your fridge and this 3,000-year-old biblical cheese share the same biological trick, just separated by a few thousand years and a much fancier label. Then there's the salt, which might be the real hero of this entire story. We tend to think of salt purely as flavor. In this cheese, salt was infrastructure. Salt pulls moisture out of food through a process called osmosis, which makes it dramatically harder for harmful bacteria and mold to survive. A heavily salted cheese, especially one stored fully submerged in a saltwater brine, creates an environment where spoilage organisms simply can't get a foothold. That's the entire secret behind a cheese that can survive a summer with no fridge. Not magic, not luck, just salt. Doing exactly what salt has always done. Thousands of years before anyone owned a refrigerator, ever notice how a bag of salt never has an expiration date printed on it? Now you know why. One more piece of this deserves a moment, because it's easy to overlook. Think about what actually survives inside this cheese that doesn't survive in most of what's sold in a supermarket today. Raw, naturally fermented cheese is full of live probiotic cultures, the same good bacteria you now see marketed on yogurt cups and kombucha bottles for a premium price. Ever wonder why the probiotic yogurt on the top shelf costs almost triple the regular kind? This is basically why, except this cheese was delivering that same benefit for free 3,000 years before probiotic became a marketing buzzword. It's also rich in enzymes that help your body break the food down before your stomach has to do all the heavy lifting. And because the goats producing this milk were eating wild grass under an open sky instead of processed feed in a barn, the milk itself carried more fat-soluble vitamins, the kind your body absorbs alongside natural fat, like vitamins A, D, and K. None of this was ever written on a label, because there were no labels. Nobody in ancient Galilee was running a nutritional analysis, but their bodies were quietly doing the math for them anyway. Fewer stomach aches, stronger children. Elders who stayed nourished well into old age. They had, completely by accident, optimized a food that modern nutrition science is still working to fully explain, and they did it with a clay pot, a piece of cloth, and a lot of patience. Then versus now. So let's actually walk through how this cheese was made, because the process itself tells you everything about what's been lost along the way. Picture a one-room stone house in the hills of Galilee. A dirt floor, swept clean, a low wooden table, a few clay jars lined up against the wall. Outside, tied to a post, 2 or 3 goats. Before the sun is even fully up, a woman kneels beside one of them and milks it into a clay bowl. The milk is still warm. She carries it inside, adds a pinch of salt, and then does something that sounds almost too simple to qualify as a recipe. She waits. That's the entire first step. Wait. No stopwatch, no thermometer, no recipe blog, with 4 paragraphs of a childhood memory before you finally reach the ingredient list. Just patience, while the natural bacteria in the raw milk quietly do their work. Once the curds form, she scoops them out by hand onto a piece of woven cloth, gathers the corners, twists them tight, and squeezes. Whey runs out between her fingers, again and again, until what's left inside the cloth is dense and firm. She hangs the bundle to drip for hours, sometimes overnight. In the morning, she unwraps it, presses it into a disc or a square with her palms, and rubs the surface generously with salt. Far more salt than you'd expect, because remember, salt here isn't seasoning. It's the entire preservation system. Then it goes into a jar, fully submerged in brine, sealed, and left to sit through a scorching summer and a cold winter without spoiling, only getting sharper and more flavorful with time. This cheese has a name. In Arabic, it's called Jibne Baida, literally, white cheese. It's considered the oldest and most authentic cheese of the Holy Land. And here's a detail that's honestly surprising. The first time you hear it, it's still made this exact way today, by Bedouin women in the West Bank and the Jordan Valley. Same clay, same cloth, same salt, same patience. 2,000 years later, and the method hasn't needed a single update, because it was never broken to begin with. Now let's talk about what happened to cheese pretty much everywhere else, because this is where things get a little uncomfortable. When the modern food industry got involved, the entire process was rebuilt from the ground up. Milk stopped being left to ferment naturally and started getting pasteurized, heated to a temperature that kills every living organism inside it. The harmful bacteria, sure, but also every beneficial culture and natural enzyme that made ancient cheese so nourishing and so easy on your stomach. Then came the additions: artificial colors, preservatives, with names most of us couldn't spell in a spelling bee, emulsifiers to keep the texture perfectly smooth, stabilizers to guarantee a shelf life measured in months instead of days. Would you trust a food with an ingredient list longer than the terms and conditions you scroll past without reading? Because that's what a lot of modern cheese has quietly become. Go grab whatever cheese is currently sitting in your own fridge and flip it over. Count the ingredients. If that number is higher than 3, you're not eating what David ate, what Abraham served his guests, or what likely sat on the table when Jesus shared a meal with his disciples in Galilee. You're eating a laboratory's best attempt at recreating a memory of cheese. It gets wrapped in plastic, stamped with a brand name, placed under fluorescent lights in a refrigerated case, and it gets called cheese. But here's the honest question worth sitting with. Is it really? Not the way David knew it. Not the way the women of Galilee knew it, kneeling beside a goat at sunrise. What most of us buy today is a pasteurized, chemically stabilized imitation of something that used to be alive, something with living cultures actively working inside it for your benefit, instead of just sitting on a shelf looking identical in June and December. Next time you're standing in the dairy aisle staring at a shrink-wrapped block under a buy two, get one free sticker. Ask yourself this: would that cheese survive a whole summer with no fridge, the way the original did? Or would it need every single one of those chemicals just to limp across the finish line to its sell-by date? How to make it. All right, you've made it this far, which means you're either truly fascinated by biblical dairy history, or you're just hungry. Either way, let's fix that. Here's how to make this cheese tonight, in your own kitchen, using the same 3-ingredient method, adapted just slightly so you can actually find everything at a normal grocery store. Here's what you'll need: 1 gallon of whole milk. And this part genuinely matters, so don't skip past it. Look for milk labeled pasteurized, not ultra-pasteurized. Ultra-pasteurized milk has been heated so aggressively that the proteins won't set into curds properly, and you'll end up with a pot of frustration instead of cheese. If you can get your hands on raw goat's milk, even better. That's about as close to the original as you can get, without personally owning a goat. Next, a 1/4 cup of white vinegar, or the juice of 2 fresh lemons. This is your acid, standing in for the buttermilk, thistle flowers, or rennet the ancient cheesemakers used. Same job, completely different tool. 2 teaspoons of sea salt, not table salt. You want the kind that still has minerals in it, not the bleached, stripped version. A piece of cheesecloth, or any clean, thin, tightly woven fabric, and water for the brine at the end. That's the whole list, really. Milk, acid, salt, cloth, the same handful of things people have relied on for 3,000 years, just sourced from a grocery store instead of a goat pen. Here's how it comes together. Pour the milk into a large pot and heat it slowly over medium heat until it just begins to boil, stirring gently so it doesn't scorch on the bottom. The second you see the first bubbles rising, drop the heat to low. Now slowly pour in the vinegar, or lemon juice while stirring gently. And watch, because this is honestly the fun part. Within seconds, the milk starts separating right in front of you. White curds pull away from the liquid. The whey turns a pale, almost translucent yellow, and the curds rise to the surface like little clouds. This exact moment, liquid becoming solid, milk becoming cheese, is the same transformation women have watched happen in their kitchens for 3,000 years. It never really gets old to watch. If you've got kids in the house, let them watch this part. It's basically a science experiment. They'll actually be excited to eat afterward. Turn off the heat and let it sit for 10 minutes, so the curds firm up. Line a colander with your cheesecloth and set it over a large bowl to catch the whey. Using a slotted spoon, gently scoop the curds into the cloth. No rushing here. Once they're all in, sprinkle a teaspoon of salt over the top, then gather the corners of the cloth, twist them together, and squeeze gently at first, then firmly until the whey stops running out. Now press the bundle into a bowl or small container and set something heavy on top, a plate with a can on it, a stack of books, whatever you have lying around with some real weight to it. This presses the cheese into a solid shape and pushes out the last of the liquid. Leave it for 2 to 3 hours, or overnight if you can stand the weight. When you unwrap it, there it is. A round of white cheese, dense and firm, slightly crumbly at the edges, smooth in the center, smelling like milk and salt, and something you can't quite put a name to. If you want to store it the way it's been stored for 3,000 years, make a brine by dissolving 3 tablespoons of salt in 4 cups of water. Place the cheese in a jar, pour the brine over it until it's fully submerged, and seal the jar in your refrigerator. It will keep for at least 2 weeks. And here's the part that should sound familiar by now. It actually improves the longer it sits, getting firmer, saltier, and more flavorful with every passing day. How you eat it is entirely up to you. But here are a few ideas straight from the region it comes from. Slice it thick and eat it with warm bread and olives. Fry it in a little butter until the edges turn golden, and it squeaks against your teeth. Yes, squeaks. That's completely normal. And it's honestly one of the most satisfying sounds in food. Drizzle it with olive oil and a sprinkle of za'atar. Or do what people across villages in Palestine, Lebanon, and Jordan still do every single morning. Pair it with sliced tomatoes and cucumbers for breakfast. That squeak, that salty tang, that dense, satisfying bite, that's not just cheese. That's a taste that connects David, Abraham, and a woman in Galilee you will never meet, all to the exact same recipe across 3,000 years. It's strange to think that in a world of food delivery apps and 30-minute grocery runs, the single most impressive piece of food technology in this whole story might be one that required absolutely no technology at all, just patience. So here's what I want you to actually sit with for a second. We live in a world that's convinced us more ingredients means better food, that a longer label means higher quality, and that if something doesn't come sealed in plastic with a barcode, it can't possibly be trusted. But the best food that has ever existed on this planet was made with almost nothing. Milk from a goat that ate wild grass, salt from the earth, water from a well, and time, patient, unhurried time, the one ingredient no modern factory has ever been willing to give a product again. No machines, no brand, no marketing department. Just human hands doing what human hands have done since the very beginning. Feeding shepherds and kings, prophets and mothers and children, all with the exact same recipe. If this video changed the way you'll look at that block of cheese the next time you're standing in the dairy aisle, do me a favor and share it with someone, a friend, a parent, a grandparent who still remembers what real food is supposed to taste like. And if you want to keep exploring the everyday, overlooked corners of the biblical world with me, the kitchens, the fields, the small details everybody else walks straight past, subscribe to Biblical Footsteps and turn on the bell so you don't miss what we dig up next. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. I genuinely appreciate you spending this time here, and I'll see you in the next one.